Hello everybody, welcome to another session of the Medication Mathematics course. In today's lectures, we are going to begin talking about measurements and conversion. So there are various systems of measurements. The most commonly used is the metric system. There is also what we call the English or the US customary system. The metric system uses powers of 10 to calculate measurements, and this is also known as the decimal system because it uses decimals. The English or customary system is based on household measurement tools that are often not as accurate as the metric system. There are other types of systems, which is the apothecary or the pharmacopoeia measurements, and these are normally in units. For example, when you take a medication like heparin or insulin, which you'll be learning about in your pharmacology course, you will see that these medications are measured in units. The good thing about the units is these are standardized, and therefore you do not have to convert from the unit to any other forms of measurement. And so 1 unit of insulin is always going to be 1 unit. Before you proceed, I would like you to familiarize yourself with the module objectives. These are going to be the objectives based on which you will be tested. For the activities for this module, you will have to complete the Safe Medicaid Essential Skills module, labeled prescriptions and SI units. And then there will be no assessment associated with this module. So let's begin our discussion. The metric or decimal system, as we mentioned earlier, has to do with the measurement in powers of 10. And it always starts at ones. So with ones, this is 10 to the power 0. Now any number raised to the power 0 is going to be 1. And so 10 to the power 0 is 1. Then you move on to the tens, which is 10 to the power 1. So any number raised to the power 1 is the number itself, and so 10 to the power 1 is 10. Then you go to hundreds, which is going to be 10 to the power 2. You go to thousands, which is 10 to the power 3. So, as you have noticed, on this left pane, you have the number of figures. The number of figures is always going to be 1 more than the power. So, as you have seen, for example, when we take millions, there are 7 figures. However, it is only 10 to the power 6. This is because we are counting the number of figures and not the powers. So for millions, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 figures, and that is why you have the number of figures being 7. For the metric system, there is the negative and the positive sides. So going down, you have the decimal. So after the baseline, you have the decimal point, and you have the tens, the hundreds, thousands, 10,000s. So the only difference is instead of tens, now we have the THS, which is tenths, and this means that you have 1 figure after the decimal point. Okay, so when you are doing your calculations and we say leave your answer to the tens, it means that leave your answer to 1 figure after the decimal point. And this is 10 to the power minus 1. When we say leave your answer to the hundreds, it just means 2 decimal places, which is going to be 10 to the power minus 2. And this is going to be 0.01. So just commit this to memory, and make sure you are able to understand what we mean by decimal places as well as tenths and hundredths, because some of your answers are going to be left in tenths and thousands or hundreds decimal places. For more information, look at the module in Safe Medicate. So when we take the metric or decimal system, we have weight and also volume. Units of weight are normally in kilograms, grams, and milligrams. These are the most common ones we are going to be using. To understand this, we have to consider some prefixes that are used in the metric system. So you have mega, which is a million. I know you all have heard about the Mega Millions, which is the Georgia lottery. You have kilo, that represents 1,000, hecto, that represents 100, deca, that is 10, deci, which is 0.1, and centi, which is 0.01. Then you have milli, which is 0.001. So these are the positive and negative spectrums of the metric system. And so, for example, 1 kilogram is equivalent to 1,000 grams, and 1 gram is going to be equivalent to 1,000 milligrams. When converting from one unit to the other in the metric system, we have to consider the powers and the differences between them. So let's take a look at the English or US customary system, and then we will do some examples of conversions. So in the US or English customary system, what we mentioned was that these are based on household measurement tools. So for example, 1 teaspoon in the US customary system is equivalent to 5 mLs. This does not always mean that you'll find a teaspoon that measures exactly 5 ml. That is why the metric system is more accurate than the US customary system. Then you have 1 cup, which is equal to 8 ounces, and this is equivalent to 240 milliliters in the metric system. You also have 1 gallon, which is equal to 4 quarts, and this is equivalent to 3,840 milliliters in the metric system. I should point that the most common ones that you're going to be seeing are your teaspoon, tablespoon, your cup, and pint, because when you give blood, we say I am going to give 2 pints of blood or 1 pint of blood, and so that is equivalent to 480 mLs in the metric system. So in this table, I have just summarized some of the common equivalencies that you are going to see between the US customary system and the metric system. There is a table that I provided in your course which has all these on it, so you can use it as a guide during your calculation. Now let's look at some examples. The provider prescribes 15 grams of medication A. The stock medication is in milligrams. How many milligrams should the nurse administer? Okay. So the first step is to determine whether we are converting from a larger to a smaller unit, or whether we are converting from a smaller to a larger unit. So gram and milligram, looking at the table that you have, which one is bigger or larger? You can tell that gram is larger than milligram. So a milligram is 1,000th of a gram. And so we are converting from a larger unit to a smaller unit. Next, we have to determine the difference between the powers. Remember, we said in the metric system, the baseline is always the ones, and the ones is 10 to the power 0, which is 1. Milli is 1,000, which is 10 to the power 3. So the difference between this is 0 minus 3. However, because we are converting from a larger unit to a smaller unit, when we take this will be 10 to the power 0 minus 3, and anytime you have two negatives, it becomes a positive. And so 0 minus 3 is going to be 0 plus 3, and so the end result is going to be 10 to the power 3. So that is the power. Okay, and so after we determine the difference, then we just multiply our figure by the power of 10, and so this is going to be 15 grams times 10 to the power 3, which is 15 times 1,000. And so 15 times 1,000 is going to give us 15,000 milligrams. There are other ways to do this, and this is moving the needle. So we have 15 grams that we have to convert to milligrams. Now this is the same as 15.0 grams. Okay, so remember we are dealing with the metric system, and this has to do with the powers of 10. And in that we have a decimal. So this is 15.0. Let me clean up a little bit. It's a bit too much, so let me choose a thickness. Okay, so 15.0. Now we know that we are going to be converting from grams to milligrams. So grams to milligrams, and we know that grams is greater than milligrams. Okay, so that means that our arrow is pointing to the right, and we are going to move to the right. The question we have to ask ourselves is, how many milligrams are in a gram? And that is 1,000. So 1,000 has 3 zeros. So we're going to move this point 3 times to the right. So we have 1, 2, and 3. So we are just going to add zeros in between and 0.0. So we have 15, 0, 0, 0.0, and therefore we have 15,000 milligrams. Okay, so let's do another example just so you understand this. Alright. What if we did not have 15 milligrams, but we had, say, 2.5 milligrams that we have to change to grams? Okay, so remember the first step is to determine if you are converting from a smaller unit to a larger unit or a larger unit to a smaller unit. So in this sense, milligrams is smaller than grams, right? And so this means that 2.5, our arrow is pointing to the left, which is the negative. The question we still have to ask ourselves is, how many milligrams in 1 gram? And that is 1,000. 1,000 has 3 zeros. So we're going to move this needle to the left 3 times. So this is where our point will be. So we have 1, 2, and 3. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we are going to end up with 0.0025 grams, and this will be the desired answer. Okay. All right. So what about if we were asked to convert 15 micrograms to milligrams? So how many micrograms in a milligram? We know that 1 milligram is equal to 1000 micrograms. Okay, and so we have 15 micrograms. The first question is, are we converting from a larger unit to a smaller unit? So we are converting from micrograms to milligrams. So micrograms is smaller than milligrams, and so mcg is smaller than milligrams. This means that our arrow is going to point to the left. So remember that 15 milligrams is also the same as 15.0 milligrams, and so we are going to move this 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and what we would do is to add zeros. So add zeros, and our point will be here. So this is going to be 0.015. It's the same as doing 15 divided by 1000, and you will get 0.015. So this is going to be our answer in milligrams. Okay. Alright, so the question did not end there. Now it says that we should find this in grams. So we have 0.015 milligrams now that we have to convert to grams. So ask yourself again, how many milligrams in, or how many micrograms in 1 milligram? And we have 1000 micrograms in 1 milligram, but we also have 1000 milligrams in 1 gram. And so between gram and milligram, which one is the larger one? So you have gram, milligram, and gram is greater than milligrams. Okay, so we are converting from milligrams to grams, and this grams is greater, and so the arrow is pointing to the left. So it means that we're going to move it more to the left. 1000 has 3 zeros, so when we take our 0.015 milligrams, we are going to move this again. So put 0, 2, put 0, and 3. Okay, so this is going to be 0.0000015 milligrams. Sorry, grams, because we are converting to grams. Okay, so this will be our desired answer. When we count this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, when we go back to the tables that we showed, we said that in the million there are going to be 7 figures. So you can test to see if your answer is correct by remembering how many figures in the million, which means that there is 1 million micrograms in 1 gram. So micro is a millionth. Remember the table I gave you. Micro is a millionth, which is 10 to the power negative 6. And anytime we are dealing with negative powers, we are dividing. So we divide 15 by 1 million. And this is the answer we are going to get. Alright, so let's do some conversion between the metric system and the US customary system. For this, we will have to know the unit conversions. Okay, so the equivalencies. We know that for every 1 kilogram, we have 2.2 pounds. Okay, so this is using ratio and proportion. However, for X, which we don't know, we have 165 pounds. Okay, so let's cross multiply, and so we have 165 pounds times 1 kilogram equal to 2.2 pounds times X. So to find X, we divide each side by 2.2 pounds. And we divide this side also by 2.2 pounds. So pounds will cancel pounds. Pounds will cancel pounds. Okay, 2.2 will cancel 2.2. And so X is equal to 165 times 1 divided by 2.2, which will give us 75 kilograms. So look at how the units cancelled out. Okay, we can also use dimensional analysis. So dimensional analysis, let me clean this real quick. And in dimensional analysis, we always start with what we know and work our way towards what we don't know. Okay, so we have 165 pounds. This is what we have. Okay, we want our answer in kilograms, but we know that for every 1 kilogram there is 2.2 pounds. So the top side will always divide over the bottom side, and we multiply across as we move from left to right. So pounds will cancel pounds, and so the unit which is left is kilograms. So 165 divided by 2.2 is going to give you your 75 kilograms. Okay. Let's do some more examples. So I think we already solved for this. Okay, so let's see. Alright, the nurse has a prescription to administer 2 tablespoonfuls of a liquid medication. A, how many teaspoons should the nurse administer? B, how many mLs should the nurse administer? So to solve A, we know that 1 tablespoon TBS is equal to 3 TSP, which is teaspoon. Okay, so if we have 2 tablespoonfuls, this is equal to X. Let's say we don't know what X is, so we cross multiply, and now we have 2 TBS Sorry, my mouse is not working with me on this. Okay. Oh no. Okay, so we have 2 TBS times 3 teaspoon TSP, and this is going to be all over 1 tablespoon. So tablespoon will cancel tablespoon, and your answer is going to be 6 TSP. Okay, so let's use dimensional analysis to solve this same problem. Okay. All right. So we have 2 TBS, and we want our answer to be in TSP, which is teaspoon. And we know that for every 1 tablespoonful there is going to be 3 teaspoons, so 1 TBS and so TBS will cancel TBS, and we have 2 times 3 TSP, so our answer is going to be 6 TSP. That is going to be our desired answer. Okay, and then for part B, it says that now we should convert this to mLs. So what we should ask ourselves is, how many mLs in 1 teaspoon? And we know that there is going to be 5 mLs for every 1 teaspoon. Okay, so we can just add on to this and say, okay, now we want our answer in ml. So let me clean this part so we have enough space to work with. Okay, we need our answer in ml, and for every 1 teaspoon there is 5 mLs, and so teaspoon will cancel teaspoon, and now you have 2 times 3 times 5 ml, which is going to be 6 times 5, 30 ml. Okay, so using the dimensional analysis actually makes the problem simpler for you. You can also decide to use ratio and proportion for this, and that means that you have to set up 2 equations. Okay, so now we know that we have 6 teaspoons. Okay, so for every 1 teaspoon we have 5 ml. So for 6 TSP we don't know, and we will just do the cross multiplication, which will be 5 times 6 and then divided by 1 TSP. And this will still give us 30 ml. So in this we have to do it in 2 steps: calculate for the TSP and then calculate for the ml. Okay, And then for our last example, the nurse has a prescription to administer 2 tablespoonfuls of a liquid medication. How many teaspoons should the nurse administer? Oh, okay, so this is what we just did. This brings us to the end of our discussion on conversions. Please complete the Safe Medicate modules, and then if you have any other questions, email me or let me know, and I will be able to schedule an appointment with you to discuss where you may be having difficulties. Take care.